Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank all of you for being here and inviting me. And in spite of the fact that I had this terrible accident and my legs out of commission, and I'm going to be in therapy for at least another good uh, 8, 9 weeks. But I just wanted to make sure that I could touch base with you people. And my talk's going to be much briefer than it would have been on my ordinary presentation. But first of all, I want to thank um, um, Tricia Bradbury and her whole team that worked together so well in promoting life in the difficult times we're living in, and as they seem to be even getting more difficult. I'm going to share with you just a little bit about some thoughts that I have here about family. I want to let you know that I'm a priest 64 years. I've been a therapist for 55 years. I've dealt with thousands of people in every frame of walk of life and problems and issues that are there. And I know I have something to share with you this evening, even though it's brief. But I also think that if you can uh, see your way to get both of my books, you will not regret it. And anything you can do to promote both of those books for all people, whether Catholics, Christians, non Christians, it'll benefit everybody because I learned an awful lot from the people that I worked with over the years. So the Old Testament starts off with the fact that the promise of the Messiah, and that Messiah was going to be Jesus Christ, and the old town of Bethlehem, which is really means house of bread. Isn't that interesting? And Jesus was born there, and it's a little old stable with animals in there, and Joseph was there, and Mary. Very simple thing. This is the greatest aspect that has ever happened in the history of the world, that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came down and became one like us. He came to teach us how to be human, how to live with one another, how to reach the Father, the sacraments that He gave us. But I think it's important to kind of realize He also taught us how to live on a day to day living with one another, uh, good manners, being pleasant, kind, smiling, a sense of humor. These are the things we sometimes forget about, the fact that even though some of these things are not written in the scriptures, this is the Lord Jesus acting like that in so many ways. So that Jesus came and for a purpose of helping us to realize that when God created us, it said in the scriptures, and He saw that they were very good. That was the greatest creation, the human person, above all the universe and everything else that He created. And in that whole aspect there, Christ comes and He doubles down on that. And He says, "You're not only good, I'm sanctifying you. I'm going to save you. I'm going to give you a message to live by." And so this is what we celebrate at Christmas. We don't always see the complete full picture of everything in there. And sometimes we just get caught up for those 2, 3 weeks and we go back into life and we forget to realize that human aspect that is so important with us and the goodness of our human person, which has been so decimated in our world today, and especially what we're going through in the present world and in our own country. The lack of dignity for the human person, which has really created so many issues and problems in our own day today, and has been so detrimental to so many of our children. And so we need to realize the role of being a parent today is so important for you people to realize that the scriptures and Jesus teaches us about being a wonderful human person. We must, through the teaching of Jesus, we must be able to see if we can't transform our world. We're not going in a good direction now. It may take a long time, but what with the remnant of what's going to be left of Christians and Catholics, we need to work together to make this a better world in the teaching of Jesus Christ. And so the chapter that I wrote in my book that I think is a very interesting chapter is called the most important relationship we have is the one with ourselves, because that's the person we're with at all times. And I've always realized too, in working with marriages, that very often, if I wanted to help the marriage, I had to work with each individual alone, because there were things that they needed to deal with in terms of themselves, because that relationship with oneself is the most important relationship if we expect to be able to move on and relate to others in time. And so when we also realize too that the house of bread is what Bethlehem is, we must remember today the terrible tragedy is what has happened to the Eucharist. 70% of our Catholics have fallen away from belief in the Eucharist. 20 years ago, I saw this happening, and I began to preach much more about the Eucharist. But I still must say that in the recent months, I was amazed to hear that the percentage of Catholics that do not believe in the real presence, 70%, it shows we're going through a tremendous transformation. The Holy Spirit is working all of this. We're going to come out of it good, but we're going to also have some troubled days ahead of us in many ways. And so the other aspect I think is important to kind of realize is that Jesus lived most of his life in family. He only spent about 3.5 years in a public life. Most of that time was spent there with the family. What was he trying to say to us? He's trying to tell us about the importance about family and family working together and praying together, learning how to forgive, learning how to deal with one another in their ups and downs, in terms of family living, which is so important and has deteriorated in our society today. And one of the greatest deteriorations in family living today is the loss of the family meal. Families don't eat together much, and therefore they don't talk together, and so they're disconnected in a lot of ways. So the weakness in our families today is very high. When I listen to the politicians today babbling on about all the problems, nothing on that list should be there should be nothing greater on that list than dedicating our lives to making family life better in the United States and in our people and our Christian people. So we realize that with the fall of the Eucharist, we're having so many of these added additional problems that are coming our way. I think it's important for us to realize that in the family life, I want to touch on the fact that the most important um, relationship in the family is always going to be the husband and wife. That's the primary relationship, and as God said, "And the two shall be one." Let me say something about the two shall be one. Two persons are in one relationship, but they also must remain two individuals. It's not one swallowing up the other or one controlling the other. It's two people developing themselves to be persons that they can work together with the other. And sometimes couples have their fights or their disagreements. A lot of times that's a healthy thing as long as it's appropriate type of conflict. It's a healthy thing because it helps them to kind of realize that we are two and we're equal. There's nothing about one controlling the other and the other. That's why it's so important to have a good, healthy relationship with yourself, because many times we have to look at ourselves and say, I can't change my partner. I can only change myself. I can only change myself and how I deal with him or her. And when that wisdom comes across, that is another powerful aspect of maintaining healthy family living and, above all, a healthy marriage. What we see happening today, unfortunately, when you're in the restaurants and you see the families together and kids on their cell phones, not communicating, walking around the restaurant, having little fights and disagreements. You always have to realize who's in charge of that family. Unfortunately, I'd have to say, in my many dealings with thousands of families and marriages and individuals, the problem is always going to be the children are in charge, the parents are not in charge of that family. And so this is a common problem that we have today. And a lot of times, this is where two parents have to really be able to work together and connect together and have a common game plan of how they're going to work with these children and be able to be criticize one another in terms of how they're dealing with the children. But this is the aspect that happens. Sometimes the children are in charge. The second one's in charge is usually the family dog, and the third one is going to be the parents. That is one of the breakdowns that we see happening so frequently in our society today. And I'm sure you've witnessed it so many times when you're in the restaurants and and situations like that. That therefore breaks down and affects family life all over the place. So in these areas like this, it's the again that major relationship is husband and wife. Nothing should get between them. Parents, grandparents, the kids, neighbors, relatives, and the kids themselves. Nothing can break that relationship. And if something breaks that relationship, don't blame the kids, don't blame the in laws, blame yourselves and say, we are allowing these people to get between our relationship and destroy it. And that's where you have to work. How much of this you've seen in your own life? How much have I seen in my own life? How much I've seen way back when I was a kid and saw how our large Italian family and some of the problems were just unbelievable the way people just did not take responsibility for what they were doing in the marriage, what they needed to change in themselves, and therefore benefit the children. That relationship between husband and wife is so important in terms of uh, the effect they're going to have on their children and their children as they move into life as adults and as they marry. The family of origin, the family background, is the root and the foundation of what we're all rooted in. None of us come from perfect family backgrounds, and some people come from pretty dysfunctional systems. But all of us, no matter what form that family is, we all need to grow beyond it. We all need to take the good and improve on it. We need to take what wasn't so good and eliminate and improve it. And that, again, the most important aspect is that the husband and wife maintain that relationship. They will leave mother and father and they will perform their own family and build it together. These are just some of the few things I wanted to share with you today. And there's a lot more I wanted to say. But some of these ideas you'll find in my two books. The two books cover uh, 30 years of 30 or more years of counseling. I didn't write them until after I had uh, uh, counseled for 25 years. Then I had a pretty good perspective of what some of the major issues were. And you'll find them in the two books. They're not all there, all the issues I could have written about, but the things that you will find there are you're going to find extremely helpful. And what people have taught me, they read, reread those books because where you are today and where you are tomorrow, the pages in those books talk to you on that day. There's always something in there. And so anything you can do for your own sake, for people, improving those books, I'd love to see them in our school system because this is the breakdown of what we see what's happening in our school system today. And that's another reason why we need strong Christian families, because the broken school systems that we have been disastrous to our children, and we still are just beginning to deal with some of it. And you know what? So much of this uh, crazy teaching that has gone on, where kids think they're dogs or they're something else, and all these other things that are absolutely devastating our country. This is what we have to be: strong Christians, strong dedication to the teaching of Christ, strong values in terms of what relationships should be. And if we can do that, this is how we find happiness. This is how we're going to find a better world, and above all, a better a better country that we're in at this time. God bless you for listening to this. Read my books. They're going to be a big help to you. Buy them for others, especially for your children, especially when your children get married. Make sure they have those two books and that they read them together. I always tell the people that I have worked with in marriage preparation, and I did quite a bit of that over the years. I made sure that when I finished with them, that they understood what a relationship was, and they understood each other, and they understood each other's backgrounds and families. And that has made the difference the marriages I've witnessed. I have a lesser divorce rate because of the fact of the things I pushed with them. And I just want to help you to realize that. And I want you to go over these things yourselves and talk about them. If we want to stop all the crazy things that are going on in this world and the whole issue of abortion that's going on, we need to be able to respect our individuality and our relationships, and above all, marriage too. So God bless you, and thanks for being here.